Good morning, y'all. Yeah, I'm back. So it's been a while since I've been on here. I was like, man, it's been a while since I made a video. So I thought that I would come on here this morning and talk to y'all for just a little bit. If you notice that I'm in a different setting, it's because I'm outside and it's early morning. I've got some people that's working night shift this week. So I just decided that I'd come outside for a while in the early morning. If y'all hear the bullfrogs croaking, they are so loud. So we're definitely past spring. We're into summer here in South Alabama. Yeah, we've been having days where the temperature is above 95 degrees already. So our spring is pretty much a thing of the past, and we're in the early days of summer here in South Alabama. But I'm just sitting down here by the pond. I just come down here this morning, brought my cup of coffee, and thought that I would just come down here and do a little talking to y'all. So what we're going to talk about today, I haven't really been able to do any quilting here lately. I've been working on some other projects. I did put up, thank you for watching my little short, if you saw my little short. I've been making aprons and just doing things like that. I've been doing some gardening. Had some chicken disasters already this year that we've been dealing with, so there's never a dull moment. It's just, if you have any type of animals, any type of farm animals, dogs, cats, whatever, you know what I'm talking about. There's just never a dull moment. So what I thought that I would talk to you today is, I see a lot of videos about 10 things that I wished I'd have known when I started quilting, or my favorite 10, notions to use for quilting, and advice for new quilters, or expert tips, or this, that, or the other. Well, I'm not an expert. I don't have any expert tips. In fact, if you've got some expert tips, please share them with me. Because I'm definitely not an expert. If you hear something in the background, it is Molly. That's my Labrador Retriever, bless her heart. She's got to be here with me. She's just got to be here with me. Go on, Molly. Go, go. So, yeah, I'm going to be talking to you today about 10 things that you probably have heard these before. I'm not reinventing the wheel, but I just wanted to give some advice for any newbie quilters out there that are just getting into the craft of quilting, and, you're a little bit unsteady on your feet and uncertain about how to go about doing it. I just want to talk to that person today. And I made a little list so I wouldn't forget what I wanted to say. So number one, if I had some bits of advice that I could give anybody that's a beginner quilter, this would be my top 10 tips. Number one is to get familiar with your sewing machine. Learn some basic sewing knowledge, reading the machine manual. There's nothing easy about quilting. If you think it's going to be easy, it's probably not. It's a skill. Quilting is a learned skill, and that's something that people aren't always upfront about. Is there's going to be some frustration involved, and what really makes that frustration even doubled is when you don't know what you're doing with your sewing machine. If you've never taken a basic sewing machine course, or, talk to somebody that does sew and watch them, there are things about sewing that you really need to know. You need to know your machine, basically. Know your machine. You need to know what a good stitch looks like on the machine and things like that. You need to know how to change your needle. You need to know, how to adjust the tension if it was to go wrong. Though I would tell you, before you ever touch a tension dial on a sewing machine, if something ever goes wrong on your sewing machine, before you ever just jump to conclusions that it's something bad wrong with it, or that, your tension's messed up and needs to be readjusted, or whatever, always, number one, change your needle. Number two, rethread your machine. Okay, rethread your machine and change your needle. Check your bobbin. See if your bobbin was wound correctly. If you've got a bobbin that didn't wind right, that can throw off your sewing a lot of times. Maybe you just need to rewind a bobbin and make sure you're winding a good, tight, consistent bobbin. Don't assume that it's something bad wrong with the machine until you've done those things. Okay. Tip number 2 would be start with an easy project, like a small baby quilt, or maybe even a cannon mat. You can go online. I like the cannon mats, the little quilted cannon mats, or like a little baby quilt, or maybe a small table runner, or just a little table topper. There are people that are different. This varies from person to person. There are some people that the way they start is all in. They're going to, their first project is going to be a queen size double wedding ring or something like that, you know. And that's just the way they do things. If that's your personality, maybe that's all right. But if you're just the average seamstress, newbie quilter, then you need to probably start with a project that's just a little bit simpler to save yourself a lot of headache and frustration. So yeah, just a basic 4-patch is always a good place to start. Just an old traditional 4-patch or a 9-patch is a good place to start. Okay, tip number 3, and this is going to be debatable from person to person. There are some people that will not agree with this at all, but I say when you're a beginner quilter, use affordable fabric and buy a little bit extra. There's some people that are all against using cheap fabric, but I would say go somewhere like Hobby Lobby or Walmart's, get some cheap fabric and begin with that, because it's a bad feeling when you mess up fabric. When you have ruined a yard of fabric that cost you maybe $13 or $15 a yard, that's really a bad feeling versus if it only costs you $5 a yard. So I would say start with affordable fabric, buy a little bit extra, especially when you're a newbie, because you're going to make cutting mistakes. Cutting errors happen often. They are a real thing. They're going to happen to you at some point. You're going to get to the end of that cut and realize that you're cutting the wrong size, you know, or you're on the wrong line with your ruler, or your ruler's going to slip. There's things that's going to happen. So I would say use affordable fabric so you can buy a little bit extra. Okay. Tip number 4 is to press and not to iron. It took me a long time to realize this. And fabric is stretchy. Fabric has a grain and it's stretchy. Even on the best days, fabric is kind of a fluid medium. It's not really stable. Now, there are steps you can take. There are some people that heavily starch their fabrics and do things like that to make them almost like paper before they start. But unless you're going to do something like that, you can know that fabric shifts. But you have to learn to press your quilt pieces. The more pressing, the better that you do. It just makes for way more accurate blocks. Don't think that you can fudge on your pressing, because you need to press. But yeah. Like I was saying, fabric stretches. So learn to press and actually move the iron and press. Do some pressing more than doing the rubbing and the, you know, the hard ironing. There are many people that's got good videos on this. I think about Karen Brown of Just Get It Done Quilt. She's got a lot of information. Lori Holt covers information. Whether or not you use steam will be up to you, but the more steam that you apply to the fabric, you can know that the more chances you're going to have of distortion and stretching in your blocks. So, yeah, some people don't use steam. Some people love steam. It's just, you'll have to decide. But I would say learn how to press as well as iron, you know. You don't want to, you can iron the fabric out when you're just like ironing a big piece of fabric that you're going to cut. But when you're actually piecing, you need to do more of a pressing and make sure that it's pushed over your seams with your fingers. Do more of a pressing than a ironing. Okay, I hope that makes sense to you. Tip number 5 would be invest in a little metal seam guide. I hear lots of people saying, you know, build a ledge with painter's tape and, you know, use this and use that and do this and do that. And, you know, you need a special foot that's got the guard on it. Just buy you a little seam guide. They're not very expensive, and put it right there. Measure out 1/4 of an inch from your needle. See where that falls. Lay your little seam guide down there, and then you don't have to worry about it. You know, when you butt your fabric up to the edge, you'll know that that's 1/4 of an inch. So I would say invest in a little metal seam guide. You can find them at Temu. You can find them at, Walmart.com. You can get them just about anywhere online. Just look up Little Metal Seam Guide and it will be there. Okay? Number 6, don't try to sew when you're real tired. I know, especially when you've got small kids and when you've got a lot of responsibilities, sometimes the only time that you can sew is late at night. You feel like that's your me time, when you can stay up and everybody else is in bed and you might want to sew. That's fine until you start making a lot of mistakes. When you notice that you're tired and you start making mistakes and you having to use your seam ripper a lot, then you can know that you've probably tried to do it a little too late, and it's best to just set it to the side before you get frustrated and go to bed and get you a good night's sleep and come back to it when you're refreshed. Which ties into number 7. It's okay to walk away from a project for a little while. I mean, if you've started something and you're really frustrated with it, whether it be quilting or anything, whether it's cross stitch, quilting, any kind of craft or hobby, it's perfectly all right to just walk away from it for a time. You might need a couple of weeks break from a project. You don't have to make yourself do something that you're not enjoying. If it becomes frustrating and it's not enjoyable, a lot of times, if you'll walk away from it, give yourself a little time to rest and come back to it later when you're refreshed, you'll enjoy it a whole lot better. Sometimes you abandon a project. That's perfectly all right. I mean, this is your life. You know what I'm saying? There is no quilting police that's got to knock on the door and say, that quilt you began 3 years ago, we're here today to make sure you finish it. That's not going to happen. So, I mean, there are times when you abandon a project, when you just cut out a quilt, or you have an idea and you cut out the pieces and stuff and you are just not into it and you don't like it. You don't like the way it's coming together. You might not like the fabric choice and you say, hey, I don't like this. Hey, put it in a Ziploc bag and donate it to the Goodwill. Somebody else might use it for scraps, or they might enjoy the fabric, or they might want to finish the project. So it's okay to walk away. It's always okay to walk away. Hey, it's okay to try quilting and then decide you don't like it. It's okay to watch quilting videos and never make a quilt. I mean, hey, this is just this is things we don't often hear people talk about or tell you. They want to sell you products. They want to sell you their fabric. They want to sell you their patterns a lot of times because that's the way they make their money. But you don't have to finish it if you're not enjoying it. Just walk away. Okay. Number 8. Something that I wished I would have known. And I have touched on this kind of in talking about pressing. And that's how stretchy fabric can be and how perfectly imperfect it is to quilt. It's all I can say to explain that. It's just, it's very seldom that as a newbie quilter or a beginner quilter that you're going to have perfection. Very seldom, because like I said, you're going to have to learn how to work with fabric. Fabric gives. It will move on you. It will do things that you're not expecting. Yeah, it's just it's really stretchy. And, it's got a bias grain. It's got a straight grain. I just wasn't expecting that as much. I thought, if I cut precisely and I sew well, this is gonna be a piece of cake. Well, it may and it may not. And there are different types of fabric. The way it's woven together sometimes determines how easy it is to work with. That's why people tout the higher quality fabric, because it has a higher thread count. And that is true. But you have to weigh the benefits of the higher quality over the affordability and accessibility sometimes, and just see where you fall out at. And it's hard to get a perfect quote unquote block. So yeah. Number 9. Something that I wished I'd known starting out is that piecing and quilting are 2 different things. Piecing a quilt is very different than quilting a quilt. And you're probably either going to be camp piecer or camp quilter. There are some people that enjoy the piecing, but they do not enjoy the quilting. There are other people that will enjoy the quilting much better than they will enjoy the piecing of the of the quilt tops. Hence, we wouldn't have quilters and long armors if that was not so. But there are some people that enjoy the piecing. That would be me, because I would way rather piece than I had quilt. But it has to get done. And when I say quilting, when you're beginning, tying a quilt is an option. Tacking your quilt is an option. You don't have to free motion quilt your first project. You just don't have to. You don't have to do a fancy binding or an all-out binding on your first project. You can do a baby quilt and use the envelope method just to sew it around the edges. I mean, you know, you can do a lot of different things. There's a lot of different ways to finish your quilt. You don't have to be hard on yourself. But, yeah, remember that. Don't be hard on yourself. And number 10, always remember this. A finished quilt is a perfect quilt. And I know, even when I say that you'll get eye rolls from Count Perfection and stuff like that. But, you know what? It's your quilt, you know, and there will always be that point, too, in quilting. You're always going to reach that point where you're just over that quilt. You think, I don't like this. I don't like the way it's going. I'm so over this. Why did I start this? Why did I? If you can press through, if you can learn to just press through that and get it finished, it's such a feeling of accomplishment, you know, when you actually get your piece finished and you stand off and you look at it and you wash it and you know, it draws up and all those little imperfections. I guarantee you, people will think. That's another thing. People are going to think, oh, you're such a quilting rock star. It's so funny. I mean, you can make 2-4 patches, and if people don't quilt, they're just in awe, like, oh, you're such a great quilter. And I'm like, huh? Whatever. Yeah. But anyways, it's because quilting is it's a work of the heart, and I think people respond to that. Quilting really is, it's just a handicraft. It's a work of the heart, and don't they, Molly? People respond to that. Yeah, they do. So this has been me here with Quilting by Heart, and I hope that you're having a great start off to, you know, to your summer. I hope that everything is going well with you wherever you are, or your spring, start to your spring. I see some people online and they're talking about how cold it is and they're not even able to garden, and gardening here is just in full swing. I mean, it's just wide open. Everything's wide open around here. So, yeah, but until next time, this has been Melissa here at Quilting by Heart saying, I hope you have a blessed day. Bye, y'all.